So, another thing I want to talk about, I'm sure that you saw last week, Spotify launched a new feature that lets you see all of your listening data since you first joined. And as with so many Spotify features, I found out because of FOMO. My entire Instagram feed was full of people posting their all times, their most streamed artists, their first song ever, first day on Spotify. My first stream was Waterfalls by TLC. So, uh,
That's a
I'm sure
legit one.
I feel like that's a real one. But I was pleasantly surprised. But last year, I was fortunate enough to speak on the Future Gazers panel at Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity, and I gave a talk on like hyper personalization and as thinking about it as like the future of the industry. Naturally, like hyper personalization data, a lot of what Spotify does brings up like that privacy conversation. So like, ooh, like what data do you have on me? How are you using it? And usually like, ooh, that's creepy. That's wrong. That's kind of weird. But somehow Spotify has like cracked hyper personalization and they package your data in a way that's like, oh my God, like look at me. Like this is awesome. Instead of like being kind of worried about, oh, like that's a lot. You've been tracking that for a long time. So what a way to crack privacy in a way that feels like you're doing a service to your audience.
Yeah, that's super interesting because they were definitely like the first to do it well, and to get people excited about what could be a data privacy issue, right? I will say that both this last Spotify Wrapped and then this last one, didn't quite hit as popular as it used to be. I feel like they could have gone deeper into the personalization with Spotify Wrapped this last year. And then with this thing, it just seemed to come a little too late. Like people have been asking for this for years, right? Like they want to know what, their entire like history is. And now it just seems like, oh, um, what is it that we can, give to people, give to our users that would get them excited without like going full tilt into like but make it better than what Spotify Wrapped is, right? Because like you, people have these grander expectations of what Spotify could do. And I get that now that they're bigger and they have more users, it's just harder to do that personalization. But this is for like their 20th year anniversary. So they could have put a little bit more time and effort into it, I think. And then honestly, I mean, I didn't see anybody sharing it, which I guess maybe it's a generational thing.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you say that too, because now you're making me think a little bit. I'm like, okay, now if I'm comparing it to other Spotify activations, especially Wrapped,
Mhm,
was this like one off, not as the fanfare perhaps
mhm,
wasn't there, and I think perhaps you're correct. There are a couple of rogue shares, especially people who are super proud of their data. It's like, oh,
mhm,
look at me, like look at my what my first
mhm,
song was,
mhm,
or
mhm,
I've been on Spotify way longer than you.
mhm, mhm,
But it's interesting because you're right. Because they're so repetitive
mhm,
and you can count on them, and of course this was like an off cycle one, it it does change like the novelty of it.
mhm.
Um, but I think what's interesting about Spotify is that these personalization plays, novel or not, they're kind of retention plays.
Mhm,
People feel like they can't switch providers because it's like, "Oh, this is my history I'm
mhm,
talking about. Like, my tastes have evolved. Like, look at the documentation of this year,
mhm.
different phases of life." I remember my, like, 2020 Wrapped was dominated by the song "Sleepy Dog, No Fade Looping" because I had gotten, as
A
everybody,
dog.
a pandemic dog. And,
That's
like, oh,
funny.
like, look at that moment in time, like,
Mhm,
documented. And to kinda get, like, a little new motiony with it, I was looking for some, like, research and data around this, and Irrational Labs published an article late last year, and it was called, like, "Unpacking Spotify Wrapped: The Behavioral Science Around, Our Yearly Music Obsession." Very new motiony, very science-backed, and
mhm,
it attributed, like, Wrapped's, like, allure to behavioral science principles like quantitative fixation, like, people love a little data point here and there, social comparison, like, showing off, curiosity, and of course, nostalgia, like, as what I was just talking about, my song from 2020. It taps into so many of these human, like, human-based principles, and I think that's what makes Spotify so novel, but how do you keep it novel when it's a year repeating itself, every time, like, you look forward to Wrapped, like you said, like, maybe it's falling off a little bit. How
Mhm.
do you reinvent the wheel? Going back to Brian Chesky,
Yeah.
like, "Oh, crap, we figured out something that works, and now it's falling off." So,
Yeah.
it's just the Sisyphusian dilemma of advertising in 2026.
I know, and then here you have another marketer being like, "Ugh, stale."
I
You know?
know, exactly.
I don't know, I think part of it is also, I talked about earlier this year about them doing their like billion club, right, with like Bad Bunny. And like I feel like they could have taken that and done some more like in-person IRL like activations of like, our 20th year. Like let's put a concert together of like the bands that people used to listen to 20 years ago. Like really dip into that nostalgia of like showing the different iterations of like where people were 20 years ago and what they were listening to. Like nostalgia is so big right now. Like there are emo parties, everywhere. All the old bands from like, 20 years ago are having concerts these days because people are like thinking back fondly on that time. So I really think that they just could have done more. And that was kind of like the miss for me because it's like they already have all this data, like you could have done something more with it, right? And I feel like part of it is like I think we're getting to the point that like it's not just like you have my data and you're feeding it back to me in an interesting way. Now it's like you know so much more about me. What can you do to make me do something for you or to be interested in like what you're working on? I did want to shout out though that they did launch their, new logo with the green disco ball, which was apparently was just like a temporary thing to announce like their anniversary. But they did get backlash from it, people saying it was dumb, like what's the point of this? And then they're, came out and are essentially backtracking it. And I'm like, you gotta be able to stick to your guns when
You
it
gotta
comes
stick
to
to your guns
doing stuff
sometimes.
like this, right? Like, why do you care what some like naysayers are doing or saying when it comes to this? Especially if you do know that it's not gonna be that, you know, um, that long lasting. So that was another thing that kind of pissed me off about their like marketing strategy
Yeah,
this week.
and, like, what a way to bring it all the way back around too. We were talking about, like, people not having too strong of a stance on AI at the beginning of this
Hmm.
episode. It's like, stick to your guns every
Yeah.
now and then. Like, have a perspective,
Yeah.
and it's valuable. It's way more valuable than you think because it's
Hmm.
very easy to conform, and it takes time to
Hmm.
build your own perspective on AI, on what you think a brand is, what you go live with your,
Hmm.
respective brands. Stick to your guns a little bit. It's
Hmm.
it's not the worst thing in the world, especially when we're talking about a logo that's probably temporary and is a disco ball. Like, let's chill. Let's chill
Yeah.
and stick to it.
Yeah, definitely. But the other thing is calling out those people is like quit being such like dorks about this stuff. Like it doesn't matter. Like they're trying to do
Not that
something
serious.
fun. Like change is okay. I'm just like people are taking these things way too seriously um for like things that, ultimately don't matter.
Totally, totally. But
um
to wrap up the
yeah.
Spotify conversation, one of my biggest learnings is like it's so interesting. Spotify doesn't need people to show their brand loyalty. They almost beat them to it. They're like,
Hmm.
you spent this much time with us. Did you know that? We don't even need you to go outwardly share this. We've given you some tools, this beautiful little story
Hmm.
toolkit that you can go live with, but ultimately like you know that you need us. And I think that's what a power play.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll do one positive and one negative. Okay, so one positive is the fact that Spotify has made this not just a yearly thing, but a brand component that people are used to. How can you as a company think about things that you guys have internally that you can do similarly? How can you show your users that like you know them, you care about them, and not in a creepy way, but here's, something that we created for you that personalizes the things that we know about you, in this way. The negative thing though is I think Spotify right now is still remaining a little too much to like, hey, your top genre is indie rock, and not as much on and like, okay, what does that mean, right? Like here you could have gone like you discovered Bon Iver in 2011. That was like, and now we take you on this journey of like who your favorite artists are and like what you've been listening through the context of them as well, and like really giving you more insights into like what it was like back when you were first listening, and, really turning in on, expanding what it means to have all this data and then turn it back on getting people to do more with your brand. And I think like human IRL activations are super hot right now because like people want that like interaction with other humans, and Spotify kind of missed out on that by not doing it and still keeping it a little too internal for me.
Yeah, that's a very fair assessment.